looks like people are already hanging out, which is great. How is everybody on time? Which this is like super rare. I'm always late to meetings, and like people showing up on a workshop, on a webinar is crazy to me. But super excited to be here today to bring the first of the series to you. We are joined by the one and only Devin Reed, who is currently hanging out as the head of content as Clary, but he is well known for his awesome newsletter and now podcast called The Reader. I don't think it needs an introduction, but we'll talk about your pod in a couple of seconds because I have many questions. I've seen the promo for it, which looks sick. But yeah, everybody, this is like the first episode in a 6 or 7 part series. We wanted to do this as a virtual summit. We actually typically set it up so it's like an all-day virtual summit where we all hang out for the entire day. But we got some feedback from customers saying like, hey, like it's actually kind of hard to like leave for the entire day because, you know, life goes on and work and whatnot. So they end up like attending just a few sessions. So we said, you know what, why don't we break it up and kind of make it like a boot camp where like we do one thing every single week and it's the same time, same day, new speaker, that kind of thing. So this is the first of many. And this is very much in line with almost, I'd say, anybody that cares or works with content of any kind. It doesn't have, you don't have to be a content marketer to get value out of the session. If you work with content of any kind, you know, whether it's like for social or it's for like your blog or it's for like putting on webinars like this, anything like that, including product-oriented content, this is going to be super valuable. So it's really about how to scale your content output because, you know, we all have shrinking resources. Most of us do. If you are in one of the lucky situations where you don't have shrinking resources, holler at us. We want to know who you are. And then, of course, the topic du jour is how to stand out in the age of AI, because AI is at our doorstep. It's AI everything. Every single day, I get like 3 emails about some new AI tool. So we'll talk about all of that. So with that, yeah, I'm gonna put it to you, Devin. It's super awesome to have you here and for you to share your knowledge with us. Tell us a little bit about yourself for those who live in a cave and don't know who you are. And also, let's talk about your pod.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm truly excited to be here. I know that's kind of like the thing to say as a speaker on an event, but I woke up excited. One, I love this topic. It will come through as I probably talk too fast at times because I get excited, and I also love hanging out with you. Like we've done a couple convos together, and you know, some behind the scenes content. Amrita and I, we do some voice memo exchanges on a pretty regular basis, and that's also a highlight for me. So big voice memo fan, by the way. So yeah. So anyways, a little bit about me. If you're unfamiliar, got my career started in sales. So started about 5-6 years as a sales rep, then moved over to a content marketing IC role. Started the Reader on the side as just a way to get some more experience to make that transition. And since then, I've become head of content at Gong. And then about a year and a half ago, moved over to Clary, where I'm head of content again, focused on category and top of funnel and thought leadership. So not all content, but a lot of it, a lot of the public facing stuff. And yeah, also run a newsletter every Saturday called The Reader. And today I launched my YouTube show and podcast called Read Between the Lines, because I'm a dad and I love puns and I couldn't resist. So that's live now on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. So it's a big day for me and a big day for, you know, just new content that's going to help people.
That's awesome. That's super awesome. There's so many marketing podcasts, but I generally feel like there's like maybe a handful that kind of get into like the weeds, like the actual like tactics and things that you can like apply and take away. So I'm really excited to dig in and see what you cover in that. But yeah, just knowing you and your style, like you're probably going to give us like a lot of like templates and hooks and a whole bunch of stuff like that. So that's going to be great. Cool. Well, let's jump into this topic. I guess like while, you know, Devin shares like a couple of slides, maybe we'll just do a quick, maybe like in chat, if you guys could just tell us where you're joining from, what city are you joining from, what are you excited about? If you have a top of mind question for Devin, start posting it. I'm like looking out for everything in the chat. Let us know. Just keep the chat live, and we're monitoring it every minute. But yeah, take it away, Devin, and I'll just pepper you with questions as stuff comes through.
Yeah, please do. Doesn't you can interrupt at any point or jump in. It doesn't bother me at all. Well, cool. So I'm like I said, this is what I do for a living and a passion. So I'm genuinely excited for this. It's like the perfect topic for me. So um, the main things we're going to cover today are one, how to differentiate and stand out. Two, how to scale your content output, and then three is some case studies for Clary and the reader of kind of like how I put these things like into play a little bit more specifically. And so, like I said, I'm really excited. But before we get into even number one, I think it's important to kind of do like a quick preface. So, when I think about standing out, I follow specific frameworks for ideating and producing content to ensure that it's differentiated, high value for my audience, and helps position me as an authority in my niche. You're going to hear some of those phrases a few times, and that's on purpose. And when I think of scaling output, I think of systems, and that means specific inputs, processes, and tools, and specific outputs. And those outputs are intentional and they align with my marketing goals and my strategic business objectives. And you'll hear me bounce back and forth between the reader, which is obviously kind of like the solopreneur entrepreneur route. So if you're like kind of an individual contributor creator, but also as a B2B leader for Clary, where I'm working with the CEO, I'm working with other leaders inside and outside of marketing. And so I'll bounce around through different examples there. When we were prepping for how to do this content, it's really specific, really important to me, that we go in a specific order, which is how to stand out. It's no use to scale content if it's vanilla and if it's not working. More for the sake of more is the recipe for noise. And that's not a strategy that I believe in. And I'm sure all of you are here because you believe that too. You've probably been pressured in some way, shape, or form, to produce more, to do more. But it's not about doing more first. It's about being different. And so today we're going to talk about how to pierce through the noise. And you're going to forget about being the best. We're going to leave that mindset behind. And we're going to focus on how to become the only. It's a really important kind of theme to think through, or lens to think through. And if you're going to also see how to scale your differentiated content to expand your reach, increase your impact. And again, these are the things I've done. And this is not, things that I've learned secondhand. These are the exact things that I'm doing. And so hopefully that'll come through and be helpful. All right. I wouldn't be a good marketer if I went right to solution. I have to start with the problem, right? And so the problem that we're all struggling with is, how do I stand out? How do I stand out? There's more noise than ever before. There's more content being produced every day than ever before. And it's incredibly frustrating to spend hours planning and writing or designing all these different marketing materials, internal and external, and you get zero engagement, or you get almost zero engagement, which feels like crickets. And if you're not getting engagement with your content, you're not getting leads. No leads means no pipeline. And if you're not getting pipeline, we're not driving revenue for the business. And that's not good for career growth or obviously for your reputation at the company. And my goal as a B2B leader is to put up numbers. You might hear me say that a lot. I'm putting up numbers. I need, whether it's on the engagement side, the revenue side, and all the things in between, is I like results. And so the real question that we need to think about through this, how do I stand out, is how do I earn attention? This should be your number one focus, both at a strategic planning level and at the execution level. Because here's the thing, if you're creating marketing or you're creating content, you're playing in the attention economy. And I know we've all heard of the attention economy. That's not a new concept, but I don't think enough marketing teams or orgs as a whole really think through that lens of how do we earn attention? And in my perspective, if you're playing in the attention economy, you're either playing, losing, or dominating. And I'm going to show you how to dominate today, because that's what I like to do. So let's get into how we can get that done.
Devin, can I just pepper in one quick comment, which is please. on the attention point. I think a lot of marketers, myself included, we all kind of think about, how are we doing in comparison to let's say a small set of competitors. They could be a direct competitor, they could be kind of in your stratosphere. But really, I think the point that you're making is that you're competing with everybody on all the channels that you choose to be active in. And so I guess part of the attention equation, at least the way I think about it, is you want to get seen, you want your stuff to be seen, but then you also want to create that affinity. And later when I ask you, later when we get through this whole thing, and maybe we can chat about how do you actually like measure that, because I'm glad you brought up numbers. That stuff is a leading indicator that is so hard to measure, and I would love to learn about that.
Yeah, please do. Feel free to ask about how I measure stuff. I've given that answer enough times where I'm like, I've got it down pretty good, because I've had to defend myself. That's what I mean. It's not like, oh, I've repeated that answer. I've had to defend my plan and my decisions multiple times to, especially like executives, and that's why it's important to have it down. So yeah, please do jump in with that. All right, cool. So let's talk about the first thing. So the first thing is, how are we going to stand out? If we're being honest, we're not going to stand out with the choice of topics, because the truth is there's only a limited amount of topics that you can focus on. And so unless you're doing category design, which is like a very neat, very specific type of go-to-market strategy which uses the languaging, I'm not going to get into all that. That's its own thing. But for the most part, you and all of your competitors have the same set of topics and keywords that we're all trying to dominate. And if you want to stand out, the number one tactic to stand out from your competition and others in your niche is to focus on evoking emotion. And you can do that through stories, personal examples, and what I call style points, which is really just how are you conveying this information. I like to say that some people like me and some people are immune to my charm. And that's totally okay. That means I have a style, and I'm totally okay with 10% of the people that could buy from me, for example, or my brand. I'm okay with them not liking me, because 90% of people that they do, and they really like it because it resonates with them. And the other thing to consider is you can't just rely on like how can it be the most, how can it be the biggest expert? How can I show that I know the most? Because now there's ChatGPT, there's a research bot you can go buy for $20 a month, and everyone becomes an expert. So it's really important that standing out is about how you present that information. And again, I like to do it by evoking emotion. I keep clicking the wrong place. That's not a dramatic pause. Cool. So this is one of the things that I talked about. Resonance today requires context to your content. Most of the time we're starting with keywords, and competitors are doing the same. So it's about how you talk about it. And let's break down how. One of the most common questions I get is, Dev, how do I tell if my content is really engaging? How do I know before I hit publish? And I have followed this framework for probably honestly the last 5 years. It's worked wonders. I think it might be actually one of those timeless things that can kind of, you iterate it a little bit, but it really fundamentally works. And so if you want your content to stand out, first is you need to ask, is your content insightful, relevant, and actionable? And the bonus is entertaining. That's kind of the style points. We'll get to that in a little bit. But the first thing is it insightful? So is there something here that's a new idea? Maybe it's a fresh take on an existing idea. Maybe it's a brand new way of thinking, a brand new way of operating. And I'm going to get into a way that you can even get more specific, which is the eyebrow test. This is one of my more favorite things to talk about. So what you're trying to do, if you want to know if something's insightful, is you're going to look for, did my facial expression change while I'm consuming the content? I call it the eyebrow test. Because if Amrita sends me something, as I'm reading it, hopefully, if it's really insightful, my eyebrows are going to do one of two things. I'm going to be reading it and go, oh, that's really interesting. And they're going to go up. Or maybe I'm reading some thought leadership and I'm not really sure how I feel about that. And they furrow, they go down. Both are fantastic because you've made your readers engage, and you've made them think, you made them feel about something. And so you can read through your content, or have one of your peers, if you have one like in your org, read the content and say, hey, are your eyebrows moving? Or my favorite is, are they dancing? Ideally, when I publish something, your eyebrows dance. So that's on insightful. Relevant is really easy. Is this relatable? Is the story relatable to my audience? And is the information, right, any expertise or any thought leadership, is that relevant to them right now? Third one, is it actionable? Amrita had mentioned this too. Dev, you're known for tips and frameworks and templates. I believe that if you stay in that insightful, relevant, you can be successful, but you will dominate if you add actionable to it, which is give people advice and then give them a talk track that they can use word for word, or a template they can copy paste, Mad Lib style, even, where they can put in their own information. Because now what you've done is you've not just helped them think in a different way, you've helped them act in a different way. And that's how you make your audience more successful. And then the last one is it enjoyable? You'd mentioned we're not just competing with your 3 to 5 top competitors. When you go to Google and type in your company name verse, you're competing with Netflix, other people's priorities, the Runner's magazine that's been on my desk for like 4 weeks that I still haven't gotten to. Your content is fighting for attention within that person's like entire world, not just in the competitive landscape. I was pausing there, Amrita. That time I did actually thought you might. I'm not pressuring you. I just thought maybe that's what you're going to pop off.
Yeah, no, this is a really good framework. Yeah, thanks for pausing. First of all, there's going to be, if anyone's listening to this, like some founder somewhere has this like amazing idea, probably is going to be like, I'm going to invent facial recognition technology to give feedback to marketers if their content is resonating based on the eyebrow test. Like, most of the tech is actually there. Someone should just put that together, which would be hilarious. AI brow. Yeah, exactly.
I need Dev GPT. Put your content into Dev GPT, and you get like an eyebrow, I don't know, like score, like what, like no eyebrow movement and dancing. Maybe that's what it is.
That's funny. But no, that's a good test, because it's like how, yeah, it's so funny. I just came to this session from kind of like really quickly, like within 30, 40 seconds, writing or rewriting like an email draft for something. And, my whole goal was like, simplify. How do I simplify it? And I kept trying to like whittle it down. And eventually it's so funny because when I read it to myself, I was just like, I'm the ICP for this. I would be a very similar recipient to this email. And like, I would respond to this. This helps me understand very quickly in 2 seconds what this whole thing is about. And it's interesting. And then I was like, okay, done, ship it. Right. So I've kind of like clocked my own eyebrows, if you will. And question on the insightful thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you can give an example of like what insightful looks like, because I hear this a lot. My boss says this to me all the time. Like, we got to lead with the insight. And it's like, yes, but sometimes the insight is like too complicated to lead with. And sometimes it's just the wrong place, wrong time. Like, it's hard to kind of put it in an email, but maybe you can just kind of provide an example, if you will.
Yeah. So insight, there's 2 that I lean on a lot. One is data. Now, if you have, the grail is your own proprietary data, right? Like ClickUp did the number, we ran the data, looked at the data, ran the numbers. Here's what we found. I will tell you that is chef's kiss, nothing better in my world. Second is actually not someone else's data, in my opinion, because like we've all seen the Salesforce stat, I think at this point, of like, I don't know, 150% of a sales rep's time is not spent selling, or whatever that number is. I'm kidding if folks are familiar, but like, it's someone else's stat. It's like, you're actually giving credibility to them. So my favorite thing, and I think this is, let me catch the name, is Camila, if I'm saying your name correctly, has a great point. There's like nothing new. It's like, how do I stand out? My friend DJ Waldo wrote this thing this is how powerful the reframe is. It was like 3 years ago. And he said that there's no such thing as multitasking. There's only task switching at a rapid pace, and it's terrible for your productivity. And then he had some, like, I think he like might have cited like, but it wasn't a data point. It was like a research paper. And so the reframe was, and the whole article, by the way, was about like productivity. And so the concept is, we've all heard of like, oh yeah, some people can multitask and some can't. And sometimes it's like, I guess it's like women can and men can't, I guess. Like, I don't know how true this is. And so when he said there's no such thing, you're actually just task switching. And it's really like basically the more that you task hop, the more exhausted your brain gets faster, and you're actually less productive over time. And so I was like, wow, what an interesting thing. There's no such thing as task. I've said it too many times, multitasking. There's only task switching. And so that's insightful, right? It's like, oh, wow, I literally did oh, wow, I hadn't thought of it like that. And then he gave me tips, actionable, for, how to be more productive, which was first, number 1, close a bunch of tabs, which I have continued to do.
Right. Got it. So, Yeah, that it's tough. It's tough to get to like the meat of it and find a way to like reframe it for somebody. And would you say, before we move on to the next thing, would you say
Yeah.
that trying to simplify and whittle it down to like the core idea is like the way to think about it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you said that. I wanted to actually mention that when you're writing the email, something that my current manager, Julian Savage, if anyone knows, very, very well-known product marketing leader, one of the things I was working on the context was an executive slide or an executive update. And as you're learning, I like to talk and I can be a little long-winded. And so he was like, Dev, the content is good. There's nothing wrong with what you're saying, but I want you to close your eyes. And if you had one sentence and not a long run on, like one quick sentence to talk to Andy, CEO, what would you say for this slide?
Hmm.
And it's usually like 5 to 10 words. And it's actually pretty short. And so you can do that one to find the insightful part, because if that's all you could keep, that is the insight. That is the value of that message. And then if it's on the slide, put it at the top. If it's in an email, either lead with it or maybe put it in bold, right? It's like, make it very clear, like this is what matters most. And then on the next slide, we'll talk about, then you can provide the context to shape the content. And then obviously, calls to action and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a good one. Okay, cool. So here's the kind of like, okay, Dev, I've got that framework. Forgive me, I'm kind of layering another one on, but this is a storytelling one. So I kind of hate the advice like, we just need to tell more stories. That's not true. We tell stories all day, every day. I've probably told 19 at least on this call already. What we need to do is get better at telling stories. And if you think about that insightful piece, right, that realization, is you can wrap it up in this quick framework that I like to do. And this is what I've been practicing myself, by the way, folks. Like, I'm not just dishing information. This is exactly what I'm doing. Is if you think about in your life, when you have a realization, there's something that comes before and there's something that always comes after. And we have to have some experience. Something has to happen to us, good, for better or worse. Usually we learn from lessons learned the hard way. But we have an experience, and then we have a realization from that experience, and that realization changes our behavior. So you can wrap your story in that as well. It can be a quick, I do this all the time in my actually weekly newsletter. Hey, I was on a chat with VP of Marketing at ClickUp, Amrita, and here's what we were talking about. I realized that I shouldn't be approaching executive comms like this. I actually should be approaching it like that. There's my reframe and realization. And as a result, here are the 5 things that I do every single time I talk to my CEO. Right? That's just like super quick. Compare that to, you get an email from me and it goes, hey, this is what you should be doing, and here's how to do it. Kind of feels like finger waggy. It's almost like you're talking down to me because you're just like, all right, Mr. Know-it-all, like, all right, smart guy. And it kind of actually like repels people, right? That's not resonating with people and meeting them where they're at. And so it can be a quick 1-sentence story. It can be a quick paragraph. Maybe a lot of it is the story and the learning is within, that realization is part of the story. But if I could impart one thing on you today, it is this slide in this framework, because this is where the world's heading. Again, as GPT can make anyone an expert, you have to add that personal experience and that style to wrap around the value that you're providing in your content. And if you're like, Dev, do you have an example? I do. And it's not mine. It's one of my favorite people. I don't know if put it in the chat. You put yes if you know Liz, and I'm going to say Fosslien.
Yeah.
She's
Fosslien.
She is my content crush, completely platonic, very professional. I have seen her work when she was at like 20. It's like when you found like Post Malone when he like put out his first single. I don't know if anyone knows Post Malone. And then now he's like a big artist. And you're like, oh, I listened to him before he was famous. I caught Liz's work like 2-3 years ago. You can see the screenshot. And she had like 20,000 followers. She started putting out this style of content, and I think she's at like 150,000 followers in like a year or 2 years, something like that. So absolutely insane growth. And what I love about this, and I mean it with all the respect, is what she's talking about is not new. If someone, again, Amrita calls me and goes, hey, Dev, just a reminder, we don't all start in the same place. Have a good day. I'd be like, weird. Why did you text that to me? But if you include this, I guess what you call it, graphic or illustration, it hits on all 3 points. It's incredibly relevant because we've all felt like, man, maybe like I'm behind where I should be. Maybe I'm not as successful as I thought I would be. And then it's insightful because it provides a new perspective. She labels it with copy, but it shows you, hey, she literally shows you, illustrates, we don't all start from the same spot. We don't all have the same opportunities. And I would say it's a little light on direct actionability, but I would say because it is so insightful, it makes me change my thinking, which is, hey, next time I'm feeling behind or less than, I'm going to remember this illustration and remember, hey, other people are in their own race. And so that's like what again, I have her book on my bookshelf. It's phenomenal. It's called, I think, Big Little Feelings or Big Feelings. And so, yeah, I just think this is a great example. And again, it's like 10, 20 words and just one great graphic.
Yeah, that the visual representation is good. And so many of us are very visual people. So seeing the same point made in a visual way is helpful. And it's like, this is part of like the memorable piece, right? Like maybe it's not actionable, but it's like, it's insightful. You nodded along, most likely. Like you kind of like, oh yeah, totally, of course. And it's relevant because all of us are always comparing ourselves to each other and all sorts of people. It's like the cousin in your family or whatever. So yeah, she's definitely got this right. And I was actually even looking at her website the other day where she's got all of these graphics. Like you can actually license this to post, as part of your content or in your blog post or whatever. So I was kind of looking to do that, which is why I was lurking on her site. So funny you brought her up. It's like we have the same, we run in the same circles or something. And I noticed like how she like labeled them. If anybody wants to like just go Google her and check out her site, just like there's something so perfect about how all of these things are labeled. It was genius. I was just like, wow, the scrollability on this is good. I get it right away. I can like find something really quickly. Pretty awesome. A good reference for brevity and like positioning.
100%. And I love that you said it's memorable. When I was putting this together, Liz jumped to the top of the list. I was like, one, I don't want to talk about myself too much, so let's get someone else's example. And it was a no-brainer to go get Liz's. And the other thing you said too, which is a gem, is you can quickly understand what she's conveying. Quickly. It doesn't take a lot of time, a lot of mental bandwidth to figure it out. I have the eyebrow test. I realize I have a lot of facial expression tests, Amrita, because we have another one this week that I developed with my team, which is the wince test. The wince is like it's not the eyebrows. It's like, I'm trying really hard and I don't know what you're saying. I'm trying really hard to untangle headphone cords here. That's the other analogy I use. And so, yeah, you don't want anyone wincing of like, oh, like, what do you mean? And like, I don't know. I don't want that feeling. Anyway, slight tangent, but a lot of facial recognition. I think it's because you said that earlier on the call. Okay, cool. We spent a lot of time on how to stand out because I genuinely believe this is the most important part. I genuinely believe that. But now let's get over to how to scale. And as we get ready for how to scale, I'd love if in the chat, I want this to be actionable. And I know it hopefully is entertaining to listen to this and to be part of it. I would love for you to put something into action. So what's one thing you've learned so far that you're going to do today, tomorrow, next week? I would love to know one thing that's stuck with you so far. And I'll roll over into how to scale content output. All right. So once you have figured out kind of your style, right, and you know how to stand out, the next thing is scaling your output with systems. And again, I want to say it again. When I think of scaling output, when someone says, hey, can we post more on social media, create more webinars, create more videos, I don't like doing wild, wild west and shooting from the hip and saying, yeah, we'll figure it out that way. And over here, we'll figure it out over there. I want a system, which is a dedicated set of inputs. That is dollars. That is time. That is also SME input, sales matter experts, and their brilliance, as I call it. Put that into the system. You have processes and tools, and you have specific outputs, which is the blog, the webinar, the shiny thing we all like to make. And so again, you want to make sure those outputs align with the outcomes from your marketing and business strategy. That was pause for intentional effect. Okay. And anyways, on the illustration here on the right, shout out to Greg for the dish here. That's a content waterfall This is just a quick illustration I did to kind of showcase actually two execs, like, hey, here's how you literally take one thought leadership report or one webinar, and how you can repurpose and recycle it into multiple different pieces there. So content waterfall is something I lean on quite a bit. And the systems concept, I'm very aware most marketers probably don't think through that lens, and definitely content marketers. Like I haven't ran into too many folks that talk that way or think that way. A lot of times I think we kind of limit it to processes, but a system is kind of like a bigger house that all the processes are rooms within. And so some guidance for you if you want to start to think through this lens and create more consistent outputs is think of the system. So one is designed for outcomes. I don't have a goal for 10 blogs a month. I have a web traffic goal. I don't have a goal for how many social posts. I have a follower growth count. I don't have a goal for how many webinars. I have a MQL or pipeline, influenced goal, for example. And so start to think with the outcomes first, because that's what your CMO cares about. I bet you that's what Amrita cares about. And that's definitely what your CEO cares about. And I know we can get into kind of measurement in a second. I know I'm kind of dabbling there, but think of outcomes, not just outputs. And then when you get to processes, I have this rule of thumb that I always tell my team: if you do something more than once, make a checklist, make a template. As a leader, I don't want my team rethinking the wheel. We map it out once, all the tedious ins and outs of who has to review and who has to do what, and design needs it at this time and ops needs it at this time. Do it once. It's usually painful and tedious, but map every single step out. I literally have done, I call them tedious calls with dev. You get on a call and it's just hammering what then what, then who, by when. It's in a ClickUp doc. And then you start to say, okay, great. These are all the things that we need to do. Then you can build that into a project board. You build it once, you duplicate it, makes life easier. You can start to run faster. Tools. My best rule for tools is they don't build new habits. They facilitate existing ones. Buying AI doesn't really make you might make you a better writer, but it doesn't make writing a habit. And so as you're selecting tools, just be really aware, what are you solving for? And is this going to fit into our system? Is this going to accelerate our processes? Or is this just kind of another cool thing that we found on social media and maybe isn't really a priority right now? And the last one is outputs. These are the deliverables. These are the things, right? These are the things that fill up our marketing plan and all the different deliverables that we're going to take to market externally and the stuff we have to deliver internally. Templates for everything. I agree, Chris. Cool. Should we go to the next part, Amrita, which is just kind of like the case studies? Or do you want to spend more time on processes? You're on mute.
Oops, I muted myself. Sorry. Yeah. No, I said let's go for it. Okay, cool.
So hopefully this is helpful. And we can, if you have questions, please do put them in the Q&A. I don't like to spend a ton of time. I actually do like to spend a lot of time on systems, but I will withhold simply because there's a lot of nuance. So instead of telling you everything that could be told, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A. Yeah, the kind of TLDR that I think about for systems is as I'm trying to build a function, a real sustainable, predictable function within the marketing org. And so this is what systems help me do. And also helps with resource allocation. So, all right, cool. Case studies, examples. Cool. So as I mentioned, I'm a B2B leader at Clary, which is a SaaS company. And I also run the Reader as a founder, I suppose. Kind of feels weird to call myself that. But there's a bunch of different things that I do here. So let's dive into some examples with tech. All right. So first is scaling content. I admittedly ragged on ChatGPT for a few months as version 1 and 2 came out. And that was because I think a lot of people saw it as like a savior. Hey, I can just give it a quick prompt and I get great outputs and I can scale super quickly. And then you put in like, any prompt and it's like, oh, this is like at best not that great. At least then it's gotten better. But now what I use ChatGPT for is kind of 3 main things. One is research. And I like this a lot because sometimes I'll be writing something or thinking of a video script. I'm like, man, right here would be a great example for, or excuse me, what a great place for an example. And so I can go to the one of the research GPTs and say, hey, what's a recent example of, I don't know, great customer care or great customer service that went viral in the last 6 months or 2 months? Boom, 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 a bunch of things. And I can say, oh, cool. That's a cool example. Let me place that in here. Or you can do market research, which is like 10 things B2B tech content marketers struggle with, just to kind of get you a starting point. Writing, I think this is the biggest one to kind of set expectations, both with yourself and with like leadership, candidly, when they're like, Dev, why don't we just use ChatGPT and make like 50 SEO blogs a month? Because it gives you an ugly first draft. And that's totally fine. Sometimes I'm, kind of running a little bit time strapped or maybe just not feeling super inspired. Throw some prompts in there, gives me an ugly first draft. And oftentimes I disagree with it. And that's a great jump off point to start to draft and to start to ideate, which is actually ChatGPT, with all due respect, I completely disagree. And here's why. And then I use that to start to form my own point of view. And the last one I kind of mentioned about the executive use case, but sometimes I'm feeling a little wordy on a slide or a Slack or an email to an exec. And other use cases, copy paste, hey, say the same thing, but in 100 words, 50 words. And the fun part about this with execs is also just ChatGPT sort of takes my style points away and makes it a little more dry. But I think that kind of is good for the exec audience sometimes. They don't need my swearing or pop culture references all the time. They're not always appreciated. I'll pause here, folks. I would actually love to ask if that's cool. I use ChatGPT 4 right now. I've dabbled with Copy AI. I'm curious, like the best AI writing tool that y'all use. Is it ChatGPT? I know there's Jasper. Writer is another one. Copy AI. Grammarly. Good call, Sean. Grammarly has a killer commercial. Emery, I don't know if you've seen it. Very good. Their AI one's good. I saw it on the other day when I was watching The Office for the 4,000th time because that's my life. And I was really impressed. They had really good messaging in there.
Cool. I'll have to do the shameless plug and say I just use, well, I'm not like a hardcore writer per se, but I use our ClickUp AI for a lot of that stuff. Like just last night, I wrote a landing page, but like I wrote the landing page, but then I kind of wanted to make some metaphors about something like specific that I had in mind, but I didn't have the words. I kind of just, I'll just back up a second. The beauty of ClickUp AI is that because we do our work inside ClickUp, I can just pull up the AI in that piece of work. So as I was writing the landing page in the doc, I just popped up the AI right there. So it knows that the context is for that particular doc. And so when I ask a question, it's answering in the context of that doc. So I was just like, hey, this is the landing page. How would you say this? I want to use a food metaphor. Like I was kind of coming up with something like recipes for ROI. Don't laugh at me, but that was kind of what I had.
I like it.
in my mind. And I just like asked it a couple of questions and it actually like popped out something pretty amazing. I screenshotted it because I was going to send it to our CEO being like, look what ClickUp AI gave me. And this is literally what I used on the landing page. So that was pretty awesome. It actually, okay. I wish I had this in the slide deck and maybe I'll send it out in the notes afterwards. But like it actually went a step further and did something that I didn't even directly ask for. It actually said, I would organize this content like this. Like it kind of gave me the way to organize it, which was like my mind was blown. Yeah, because it had the context that it was a landing page. Like it knew it didn't need to be like a run-on thing.
That's what I need. Okay. Maybe that's my answer. Because I do use Brain. We'll get to and ClickUp. We'll get to that in the next slide. But I think that's an aha for me because that is the thing I struggle with ChatGPT is the tone and the like formatting. Even when you tell it what it's for, it kind of all feels the same. It's just kind of like overly excited, like emoji filled thing, a lot of times. And so if I could tell it, yeah, immediately this is a landing page and it would work. I write a lot of landing pages. That would be killer. Okay, cool. Mm-hmm. I like that. All right. Well, let's use that as a segue then to how I use ClickUp because I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I do use ClickUp for the reader. So quick context and subtle plug. I mentioned at the beginning that I launched my new show and podcast today called Read Between the Lines. That's the what, but the how is where ClickUp was an absolute game changer. So it's not a Zoom recording show. We're actually doing 4 episodes in 3 different cities across the country. So there's a shoot in San Francisco, one in Chicago, one in New York. I have a creative director, production manager, podcast agency, and at least 2 other people helping support in multiple different ways. And all those people are in 2 different countries and 3 or 4 different time zones. When I started the project, I was working out of Slack and notepads, like to-do lists, trying to get 1, post-meeting notes all together, and 2, action items, and 3, very poorly trying to figure out who's done what and what is actually on time and what's behind. And so I'm really grateful that I was able to partner with you all and start to use ClickUp for the reader, because 1, it's help with complex project management. And so the ability to, 1, I think the kind of foundational stuff is, you have owners, you have tasks, you have projects, and I love it. Very easy to use. The really cool part is, instead of slacking David, like, hey, where's that edit that I thought we would have this morning? Or, hey, are we still on track to book that venue? You can just use Brain and ask Brain what's behind schedule, and just all these different questions, like basically replacing Slack. Not that I don't use Slack, but replacing those like constant tap on the shoulders, and having it all in one place using ClickUp, Brain, and AI to both automate and get status updates. I will never go back. Truly, truly game changer.
Nice.
That's on the project management side. The other super cool thing I'm setting up today or tomorrow is this really cool thing where I was talking to, his name is Joe. He's helping me set up my ClickUp account. Shout out to Chris for connecting me with Joe. And he was like, hey, what's your content creation process for your newsletter? And I already told you on the call, usually like some sort of experience, like talking to, a marketing peer or, something like that. And he was like, then what happens? And I was like, well, I either punch it out on my, notepad on my phone, or I like do a voice memo. And so what he's doing is he's taking the voice memos, and we're going to set up automation through ClickUp where it goes to ClickUp, it gets transcribed, and then it gets put into multiple different drafts for a LinkedIn post, for a newsletter, etc. And so instead of going from like, okay, I have all these voice memos, I need to like manually, or, again, you can use AI, but it's just like so many clicks and tools to get to a first draft. I'm able to expedite the process and start, again, go from voice memo to draft in, I don't know, a minute or 2. And then I just clean it up and post it. So that one was unexpected. I had not even thought of that use case, but I'm really excited about it.
I love that one. And just to clarify, the voice memo is like, what is it, like a brain dump? Like it's like you're thinking out loud? Is that kind of typically what it is?
Yes. I wouldn't invite anyone to inside my brain. That's a crazy place. But the voice memo is the somewhat refined version of what happens in there. And so, yeah, I often just go for 10, 20, if I have more time, 30-minute walks. And with actually the intent to not think. I know it's kind of a counterintuitive, but I'm like, just walk to walk, just look around, whatever, no phone. And then when I have some sort of idea, either an epiphany or just starting to get a train of thought going, I just record and hold it up. Sometimes it's a quick one-liner. Oh, this is how I should have written that H1 on the homepage. Or I'm literally just talking through an idea. Like, actually, I was talking to Chris today. I don't agree with this thing he said. And then I push myself to understand his point of view. And then that will often come up with new ideas too. So then I just take that, and that's where it starts to hit the automation train. Just made that up on the spot. Transcribe it and put it into a draft. And then it's just nice. Like you get back to your desk and it's like, okay, now I'll sit down and really, hit the formatting, give it one more polish, and then let it fly.
That's cool. That's a good workflow, actually, because I could see the speed part of it, and I can kind of see how you're tapping into the serendipity, or like so you've kind of created like a situation where some ideas will happen, and now you're just like channeling that in the right way. So I love that. It's really cool.
Beautiful. I think that's pretty much it. That's it for slides. Let me see here. We can do a quick recap. If you want to screenshot 3 things to do, and then we'll go to Q&A if that's cool. I've got time. Yep. So real quick, if you only the TLDR, which I have been told stands for too long, Devin Reed, stand out by sharing context to your content. Number 2, build systems for outcomes and scaling what works. And then 3, I use AI and ClickUp to streamline processes and improve my creative process. So these are the things you put into play. I promise will help you stand out, dominate in the attention economy, and honestly have more fun doing it. Having some guidance, having some frameworks, having some guardrails in place, make the creative process more fun and more effective in my experience.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, and for everybody that asked, I think there's a bunch of chatter going on about this. Thanks to Sean for summarizing some of the AI platforms mentioned in the chat. But you know what we'll do? This is actually great fodder for us. We're just going to curate all of the good content creation tools, but like specifically the workflows that you can build on them. So like, again, to Devin's point, make it super actionable, hopefully visual and memorable. So we'll get that and we'll send that out with the recording of this thing so that you guys have it in your inbox. But yeah, let's talk questions. Let me do an audience one real quick. So earlier, I think it was like in one of the early slides, Devin, Sarah Baker asked, I would argue that sometimes actionable is okay on its own without having to be entertaining. Depends on the subject matter, of course. And if you're like in a complicated niche and can educate around something that helps your ICP or your buyer persona, then how entertaining does it really need to be? So she's kind of asking like what the right sort of combination is and how much do you over index on that, or like do you under index, and like what the sort of balance is?
So the truth is it's subjective, right? It's up to you as the creator, author, expert, whomever you play in that kind of process, is how I would say how entertaining is my brand or my reputation, and lean into that. I'm not trying to be extra. If you think Devin reads extra, this is the exact amount of extra that I am every day. Like this is who I am. And so if you read something that I write, hopefully it's going to come through as such. I'm not trying to be super extra for clicks. And I'm also not trying to be too bland because I want to entertain. I want this to be an enjoyable experience for you. So look, if you're an expert and you can get away with just being actionable, you could argue that could be your entire content strategy and brand. Is like, what if your whole brand was like, I don't know, hotel booking that's to the point. I'm going to run up right off the cuff here. And your whole brand is like, we make it fast, we make it simple. Your copy is short, you're punchy, and then all of your content is just short, actionable, to the point. That's a brand right there. You could run with that and you wouldn't have to argue or defend it because it's clear, right? In that 30 seconds, it's super clear. And so I think it's really just like play to your strengths, play to your audience, right? You got to send some signals. You got to publish content to get the signals back. And then you can just refine over time, find your voice, find what works, and then keep doing it.
Yeah, cool. Then I think a few people have asked this question in different ways, but some people are looking to understand, kind of like, ode to my previous question, how do you know when something is working? What are are there measurements that you put in place? Is it anecdotal evidence? How do you truly know?
So there's a lot of things you can measure. I would say before you get right into metrics is zoom out a little bit and think of what are we trying to see? Like, what are we trying to measure that works? So the first thing is, I don't believe that followers and engagement is vanity metrics. I don't. Those are visible metrics. So they can become vanity metrics when you brag. Hey, I'm look how many followers I got from this campaign. It's like, okay, cool. That's super visible. You're kind of trying to tell me how popular you are. If that's your like North Star, you might be in trouble, honestly. But if you said, hey, we ran this, and we do this at Clary, is, we have a very, I'll say robust social media strategy. We have the corporate channel. We have multiple execs that we're building up. And so we use impressions, engagement, and followers as a signal of, is this resonating with people? Because if it is, that stuff should be growing in that subsequential order. Yeah. And then what inevitably happens, CEO goes, okay, Dev, that's all cool and great. And I'm super stoked. Yeah. How do I know it's contributing to pipeline? Now, social media, I'm gonna go away from the social media thing for a sec. But then it's like, okay, well, let's look at our marketing strategy, which is usually, are we getting MQLs, or what we call viable MQLs, which are like the right personas at the right accounts at the right geos? Yeah. Conversion rates, are those MQLs converting into an S0, which is just a net new opportunity? So sales has taken a call and says this is legit, or sales is taking a call. S1, second conversion rate is, did sales take a call and it's legit? Yeah. And they're working it. And then you have your attribution, which is pipeline source, pipeline influenced. I kind of do the wince because we all decide what that's worth. And so I honestly even like undersell that to my CEO. I go, look, I'm going to show you the numbers because I know you want them, but that's not like the main thing here.
Mm.
If I really had to boil it down, I think Johnny's question is kind of this too in the chat or in the Q&A. If your web traffic and your inbound hand raisers, if they are not going up, your content strategy is broken. Or very, very new, and you need to give yourself time for that to happen. But the truth is, if you launch a content strategy and you're not seeing higher web traffic and inbound in 90 days, something's broken, and that's okay. You just need to refine and figure out what that is.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, sometimes you have a ton of inbound traffic, but they also don't convert. So sometimes you kind of have to do the opposite, which is like, doesn't matter. If the tree has fallen in the forest and no one's seen it, it doesn't matter. This at my old company, we had like so much traffic to like a very small subset of things that we had written, and we were like, "Woohoo! This is awesome! 100,000 visitors!" And it's like the conversion was like 0.0001% or something.
Well, so that I mean, I get excited because I'm like, then I get into problem solving mode, which is like there could be a bunch of stuff, right? Like first of all, conversion rate. I said hand raisers, but conversion rate is your demo or talk to sales button. But it's also
or
your
whatever
offers.
The conversion was.
Exactly.
Like we cycled out all of the offers. We tested, like I was like, oh, maybe the jump is too much. Maybe we should have something more top of funnel. But nope. Yeah, those set of posts just attracted traffic that was not, I think, in the right headspace. So like that actually gives us insight. Like you can get traffic, but it's like sort of that could truly be vanity metric because maybe you're attracting people that will never buy and will never be ready to buy.
Yeah. And there's so much nuance to that too. You could say, give it 180 days because depending on what you sell and the price point, you might need to educate and they hit the website and come back, or, they start the 74 touch journey that is marketing to sales. So again, it's if the real gem here for me is don't think about creating content, think about creating demand.
Yeah.
And totally. That's inbound. Straight up, that's inbound. So that's like the easiest way. And then all these other things are early and lagging indicators.
Yeah. That's cool. I love that you said that sentence. That's I hope our whole content marketing team is hearing it because that's what we're here to do, guys.
That's what we do.
Okay, cool. Let's just wrap up with the last question I had, which I started off with. On attention and affinity specifically, are there things that you look for to know if that piece of it is working?
Yeah, I would say so. The first is like that, like again, for social media, and you could say web is like, impressions or web traffic visits, but it's kind of like, are people seeing us, right? Think of your brand as your reputation. And if you want to build a reputation, people have to know you, like you, and trust you. I have to know you exist. I have to like you at least a little bit, but really people buy because I trust you. I trust that ClickUp can solve my problems. And so your content, that's like, I know it's like another framework you can kind of think through, but first one's no. Do people know you exist? If you get 400, impressions a month on your social media strategy, no. And if they don't know you, they probably can't like you. And if they can, then they definitely don't trust you to solve their problems because they don't even know you exist. So that's how I would kind of think of it from that standpoint. Brand affinity, I almost imagine like a lot of like brand marketers, like maybe ready to like shout at me, but I kind of look at it as like, look, the best brand is revenue. Straight up. Like, and I know that sounds like too salesy maybe, but that's true. You can do brand surveys, but I actually really like anecdotal feedback. I love when a CRO replies to our email marketing and goes, "This was a great email. Thanks for the guide." For a CRO to read it or to open the email, read the email, download the guide, and reply positively is like a home run. It doesn't show up on a dashboard, but I do take email replies, social media DMs. My CEO might, share that someone sent to him about our marketing. And I do put that as a slide in a deck when I'm doing a recap on a campaign or an asset, because that is important. It is important that you see you're creating raving fans, because raving fans turn into customers.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. That was amazing. Thanks for all the frameworks. Like I said, we'll like chop this up a little bit, send out a few sound bites, send the recording, and of course, you know where to find Devin. Check out his podcast. give him criticisms. He loves that stuff. And he's super accessible. So you could definitely reach out to him on LinkedIn, etc. And yeah, that's sort of it. If people could just hang out for one quick second, we're going to actually throw up a survey about how you thought about this content. Was this valuable? Was this helpful? This the overall experience. If you could just take that rating, that survey, that would be helpful. And don't forget to join us next Wednesday for our next session on integrated marketing, which is happening same time, same day next week. And I will see you there. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
See ya.